there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com and this week's episode of the Market Monday. So this week on the Market Monday, I am going to talk again all about Ultimate Masters. I'm going to debunk a lot of, I don't know if I want to call these myths, just a lot of misunderstanding about exactly how economics works, especially when it comes to Magic the Gathering, the secondary market, box value, and where a set finally will always settle down. Now, there are a couple exceptions to the rule. However, these exceptions have always been low supply sets. We're talking about the original Commander sets. We're talking about Modern Masters 1. And we're talking about some of the other supplemental products that just had a very, very low supply run. However, in this kind of new age of Magic, the amount of supply has always been able to meet demand and more. And without exception, you can go back at least 3, 4, 5 years, and there are very few products. You might say that Commander 2016 is one that is an outlier, but that one was kind of a switcheroo by Magic. There was supposedly more product coming out, and then they never did, and that led to kind of a buying spree of some of the cards like Atraxa, all the cards listed in that set. So again, there are some exceptions, and maybe people are saying that's what Ultimate Masters is going to be. However, after talking to distributors, after looking at the actual numbers out there, it looks like the iconic Masters, Masters 25, and now Ultimate Masters all have very similar print runs. So there is a ton of this out there. This is kind of Wizards' last hurrah on getting the equity out of legacy cards and even out of a lot of the modern cards, as a lot of the cards that are being reprinted in this set were made sure to actually sell this set as they can no longer rely on low supply cards from legacy that reached the $60, $70, $80 mark to actually be able to sell sets. They tried it with cards like Rashad and Port. They've tried it with cards even like the Mana Vault, and it's just, or Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, whichever one the one is. And those aren't enough a lot of times to sell the set. So they need some in high demand cards at high price, like the Lilianas, like the Tarmogoyfs, to sell the set. So we're starting to see a lot of the other cards roll in. I pretty much knew that we were out of the goodies, the staples, because I think that a lot of the staples would have been printed as box toppers. And when you see cards like Fulminator Mage and Eternal Witness, I think that just shows you that, if there was a more expensive card, modern, rare, or mythic, and saw more play than like Fulminator Mage, more iconic than those, they definitely would have used as a box topper. So I think the lasting value, or the last value we're going to eke out of Eternal Masters, is going to be held in these cards that you see, like the Back to Basics cards that went up recently, mainly are because they were from Urza Saga, low supply, and these can't hold at their value. Now let's just talk about set EV. Let's talk about the MSRP, let's talk about distributor pricing, let's talk about all those things of how we come to a conclusion of where cards are going to fall, or where they're going to settle, and look at some historical data, and then try to see exactly where the cards in this set are going to fall. So first of all, MSRP does matter. I think Goldfish even, Seth, put out an article about how manufacturer's suggested retail price is just that, a suggestion. Well, that's not really true. That's not what an MSRP is. An MSRP is usually anchored on of course, what it costs the manufacturer to produce the product, what profit margin they want to make to their distributors, and then with that in mind of how much the distributors are going to market off to the vendors, and then what the vendors are going to market off to the end user, the person that is going to purchase the product. So usually from distributor to vendor, there's going to be the MSRP. They want the markup to between, I would say, 45 and 50%. So that's usually how an MSRP, the conclusion of where that's going to lie, is that's what an MSRP is. It's also traditionally has been used, which companies like Wizards constantly break with deals when they make with like Amazon and other places. It used to be a promise to your strategic partners that if you sell the product on your own site, like if the manufacturer was going to sell the product themselves, that they would not go below the MSRP, that they would keep it there so that they would not outcompete their strategic partners. However, that's not the case anymore with Wizards making deals with Walmart and Amazon to surrender price control. They no longer can put a static MSRP on a product and enforce it themselves, as Amazon gets to dictate the price they sell Magic products, not Wizards of the Coast. So anyway, we've talked about that before. You can go and check out other videos for a whole overview of what I feel about Wizards kind of going away from the MSRP route. So historically, when sets come out, they are anchored on the card prices ultimately become anchored on what I like to call distributor prices of boxes. So if you go over here to Dongo, you can kind of see this in action. that whenever a set gets above a certain value, so we can see this with Ixalan here, Ixalan did go up even more in value October 30th through November 4th, and you can see that starting to tick back down. Two reasons. A, whenever a box becomes this price above where someone like me can get it for $80 a box, and the labor cost of actually cracking this and shipping it off on like TCG Player or just selling it to players is profitable, we will do it. So the average value of a card is going to have a representation of how much it costs the game stores, the distributors, everyone in the game, in the before what we call the secondary market, the primary market, how much it costs us to then pass it on to the secondary market. So we do have an anchor point with sets like Iconic Masters, sets like Masters 25, sets like all the Modern Masters in the past, even Commander sets. And again, once they do go along that lines, especially when they're still in print, they inevitably will always, this EV will indefinitely go, usually even below. We're not even the same at MSRP. You can throw MSRP out the window. It'll even go below the cost, the distributor cost, because there are so many people out there in this industry that are willing to work for basically nothing, where they're willing to, like I think what Rudy used to do, is open up all the boxes, sell the cards at cost, and keep the foils. So there are people out there like, that'll be my profit margin, whatever the foils that I get out of it. So you can see this historically. If you actually look at all of the master sets, every single one of a master set that's ever been printed, at one point in time, at its height of its release, the sets were worth around that distributor cost price. Now, yes, a lot of them have recovered, and a lot of them actually recovered swimmingly. Two of them being Eternal Masters and Modern Masters 2017, or Modern Masters 2015 and Eternal Masters. These were not the most well-received sets. I think people are looking back at these with rose-colored goggles. When Modern Masters 2015 came out, people didn't like it. It had a tough time selling compared to Modern Masters 2013. And remember, this was just the second one of its type. Same thing with Eternal Masters. Eternal Masters did have a better reception. It sold out very good, but the second wave of Eternal Masters was actually kind of slow to sell off and start accruing the value. Now, of course, now it looks like just a home run of a set, but it did take some time to get there. And Modern Masters 2017, of just how packed it was already, after a couple weeks after release, did bottom out to about that price of the box value was around the price that a lot of stores were able to get it at, and definitely lower than MSRP. And now we actually see that Iconic Masters and Masters 25, look at that. Look where it's anchored. It is anchored slightly around, and we're looking at TCG Mid. I mean, TCG Low gives you a better picture. It is anchored slightly around what people get the boxes at, what the distributors or the game stores are able to crack boxes at. And that is how prices are determined. Of course, supply and demand are going to dictate the individual cards. But when we're talking in averages, the average cost of a card, or what we call the estimated value, is always going to be anchored towards the price of the product. So, like I said, there have been a few exceptions, and mainly it's just because Wizards has had a hard time judging how popular the product is going to be, and some of these just sell through the roof, and then of course then the demand really starts to outstretch the supply, and you can see runaway prices. But historically speaking, and you can go back and do this for yourself for all these master sets, every one of these sets has bottomed out to that distributor pricing or below level, and then has been able to recover. So all the people that I keep arguing with in my various walks of life that keep telling me that this set is somehow going to hold this ginormous set value or estimated value around the $400, $500 mark, it is just plain ludicrous. That is not going to happen. It cannot happen. It has nothing to do with the cards that are contained within the set, and has more to do. What I'm trying to state here is if this master set had like just half the cards it has right now, those cards would actually have an easier time maintaining their price than if you even put more cards in this set. So what if Wizards just were like, we're going to get rid of the reserve list for the set, throw a bunch of dual lands in here? Same thing. The entire estimated value, the average price, would then meet that distributor price between distributor and MSRP pricing, and everything across the board would go down except for the extremely high demand cards. And we can see that time and time again. So I'm going to show some examples here, and then we can start to formulate a conclusion on where these prices are going to settle. Now, kudos to Seth here. Seth Safronov has already started a spreadsheet here. I'll have it in the link of where you can look at it. And I checked this earlier this morning, and it was at $445 was the estimated value. We haven't seen a lot of things spoiled since then. I think it was like there was like a bulk rare that really did throw the averages down. But what that's showing me is these prices are definitely in free fall. And I think Tarmogoyf is actually one of the more expensive cards, and now it looks like Tarmogoyf is now it's on line 6. I think it was right under Liliana at the time. And you can see the prices are definitely starting to what we call the race to the bottom. As more vendors are starting to figure out how many boxes they're going to open up, they can start doing the averages of how many they're going to open, and then lowball that, but know they're going to open. We're going to at least get 2 card liberators. Let's throw them up on TCG for pre-order, and let's get in there. And this is what we call the race to the bottom with new product. Everyone is trying to compete to get that sale, and then prices and definitely start to find the true value. Now, I've stated before, I think Tarmogoyf is going to be a $35 card, possibly a $30 card. I think cards like Temporal Manipulation, you can already see this one getting just completely crushed. I think this is one that is very similar to other cards with low supply, but very actually low demand. And this is going to be your card that is going to go extreme down. We're talking down to the $20 mark. And so that's a lot of value that's going to evaporate there. But again, all this is going to somewhere, it's going to hit around in my opinion, to about the 200. The box value is going to bottom down to the $200 to $250 mark. So there's a lot of room for this set to continue to go down. Of course, this value definitely will not start going up. So here's the no topper value. Here's the with a topper, 423 versus 371. You can of course watch this and scroll through. A lot of uncommons and rares that have no chance in hell of holding these values. And yeah, we have a lot of time to go before the set is even released, where this price is going to creep down, 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 down. All right, so where's my evidence? Am I just spewing this out about this set? Let's take some look at some evidence with some cards. So you can look at, this is Modern Masters 2015. It came out with a high estimated box value or estimated value of the set of $1,000, went all the way down to 640. 5-ish when it was at its height of its release, recovered a little bit, then crashed again, and has been going up and has actually been recovering pretty nicely, and now is getting crushed because a lot of these cards are being reprinted in this set. So the thing about Modern Masters 2 is even cards like Noble Hierarch, it came out having a $41 mark, and this even settled all the way down to the $30 mark during its height. So this lost about 25% of its value, give or take. So from its pre-sale price, what it was even going for. Let's look at Conflux in July. It looks like, what is that, June of or May. So May of 2015. If we go to May of 2015, yeah, actually no, it was like a. Whereas May, it was like a $60 card, we'll say, for the sake of argument. So it actually it lost even more value. It lost more than 25%. It was more like 40% of its value that it lost from the Noble Hierarch. No, 50%. Yeah, 60 to 30. It lost about 50% of its value after the reprinting of even a card like Noble Hierarch. Now, again, these cards can recover. This was kind of the nature of the beast. There's a lot of other economic factors or a lot of other factors going into if these can actually recover in the long term. And we've seen that when master sets have been new. And this was like a new deal where it didn't, over time, Magic continued to grow in player base. What I like to call this stretch from Oath of the Gatewatch to where we're at now is enfranchised wallets purchasing power grew. So a lot of people got jobs in this area. A lot of people were kind of the coming of age time period were able to afford cards they never could afford, and the enfranchised players whaled up and started buying a lot of cards, finished off modern decks, finished off commander decks. I didn't see a lot of player growth in this time period. The player growth happened from here. This was a big burst of player growth from all the way from Return to Ravnica all the way to, I would say, about Battle for Zendikar. We had a stagnation in player growth around here, but we did have a key element that happened, and it was everyone whaled up. That's the terminology I'm going to use for this. Feel free to put it in the dictionary. Anyway, so the what can go on is we could start to see this happening, but I think that's kind of a moot point for the box value of this set unless people are looking to invest in this for the long term. Now, if you did buy Modern Masters 2015 and sit on them and then crack packs later on or just sold product, yeah, that was a pretty good investment when it bottomed out. And who's to tell exactly how this Ultimate Masters is going to work out in the long run? I am very bearish with it because I don't think that Wizards of the Coast has stopped their reprint, what I like to call reprint hell, anytime soon. And the biggest problem with Wizards of the Coast is they're running out of new equity. There are not a lot of cards that have come out from new sets that they already haven't printed into the ground. I can think of like one. That's the Liliana from Eldritch Moon. A lot of the other cards like Chandra that had a good chance of actually recovering, they put in a Challenger decks. There are so many of those type of cards they've already printed in supplemental products, like cards like Zendikar Resurgence. They threw back in a Commander deck. Hardened Scales, they already threw back in multiple decks, I believe. Even cards when they're at the height of their time, like Siege Rhino, were put in multiple products, so they have a hard time going up. All of these type of things have worked against Wizards having equity in the future, so they have continued to have to kind of cannibalize off the equity of the past and done multiple printings on Noble Hierarchs and Karns and things like that. And they're not going to have the option for Chandras and those type of cards because they've already, printed them into oblivion in their supplemental products in the here and now. So we're in a weird position for Wizards to find equity to be able to do these master sets to begin with. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they just can't. That's a comment that I made, I believe, on Rudu's video that a lot of people gave me flack for, is they try to say that I was acting like I didn't want reprints to happen. Ultimate Masters so far has basically hit nothing. I do not hold many copies of any of these cards. I got out of these cards a long time ago, and so it doesn't actually hit my wallet whatsoever. This is a good thing for me because I can reinvest in these cards at a low price. So I have no stake in the game here is what I'm trying to say. What my statement really was is not whether it's right or wrong or good or bad. It's that Wizards cannot do this again because there's just going to be no equity left for them to do it. So for that reason, I'm pretty bearish on Ultimate Masters not being able to replicate what Modern Masters 2017, Eternal Masters, and Modern Masters 2015 did with being able to go back and increase in box value over time. So I think it's going to be more like Iconic Masters and Masters 25 and have a very stagnant growth for quite some time. We're seeing that with Battle Bond. You'd think that Battle Bond would start to recover at this point. It hasn't. It took a long time for Conspiracy 1 and 2 to accrue in value for a lot of those cards that were reprinted there. And it just seems, historically speaking, month after month, year after year, it's getting harder and harder for reprinted cards to reaccrue value like they used to. And it's just because more and more product each time. And I think the whales have finally been stretched so thin that everyone has a lot of the cards like for me, example, I have 10 Commander decks, and I've got my couple Modern decks. I've got, I'm pretty well, I have enough in Magic. And of course, there are some people that are just go crazy. But the average player, we have our needs met. We can play in multiple tournaments and we're good to go. So what Wizards really needs to do for another bullish market or runaway prices on the singles market is they really need to have A, cut back on their reprints, and B, get a huge player influx from Arena or from other venues to start playing the game, and then start that natural transition of going from Standard to Modern to Commander to foiling out their decks and whatnot. All right, so that's kind of my overview of the market. Let's get to the evidence with more of these cards. Let's look, for example, let's go over to the Iconic Masters. So Iconic Masters was a set that I actually think a lot of people were a little bit too harsh on, because if you can see, the set value of Iconic Masters when it actually came out was very similar to Modern Masters 2015. Was very similar to Eternal Masters, was very similar to everything but the first Modern Masters 1. Where have the prices gone? Well, like I said, they inevitably have to cave down to where the estimated value of a box meets the distributor price. And the biggest problem with this set is there was very few high demand cards and a lot of not really high demand cards. So that actually worked against these cards right here, the Horizon Canopies, the Mana Drains, the Aether Vials, and the Cryptic Commands. All of these were able to stay quite high comparatively to where they were before this reprint. I don't think that any of these cards took a huge hit. Maybe Mana Drain did, but Horizon Canopy actually, I believe, did not take a massive hit. Yeah, it was coming out the gates of like 69. I think it got up to like 100, didn't it, from Future Sight? Got up to 99. So yeah, that's a lot less percentile decrease than what we saw with. In fact, it looks like it's recovered a bit from just people preferring this particular card over it. But anyway, what really happened with Iconic Masters was there was not enough of the staples to kind of hit the price on an equal basis to everyone on the card, that the cards with low supply got crushed. Now, what are some of these with low supply? Look what happened to Fluster Storm. Fluster Storm is probably one of the better examples. So October of 2017, let's look where it was in October of 2017. October of 2017, this card, well, it was spoiled probably right here, $95. A $95 card out of Commander got all the way crushed to $13.54. So you go over to here. What does this remind you of? What cards does this remind you of? Maybe a Back to Basics that is currently sitting at like, what, the $80 mark? Maybe a Phyrexian Tower that also has if we go over to EDH Rec, it actually doesn't have that much play in EDH. It does have enough play and is rare enough that it's just slowly gone up, a cent a day, 2 cents a day, and that adds up over 5 years. To where you have an expensive card. Eldrazi Conscription, same sort of deal. Even it would put like Visions from Beyond in here, Glendalandra Archmage. A lot of these cards are not Wall of Reverence. There's another good one. It does see some significant amount of EDH play. Some of these cards, even like Gamble, these are cards with more of the low supply rather than they have the high demand. Gaddock Teeg's another one that I think is just going to get absolutely crushed with this reprinting. So the biggest difference too with this set though is it reminds me of Iconic Masters with the discrepancy between high demand and low supply. If we actually come over here to look at a lot of these cards that are in this particular deck, you can easily categorize them into kind of these categories. We have Liliana the Veil, high demand card within Modern. Karn, Liberated, high demand within Modern. Tarmogoyf, Caverns of Soul, Snapcaster Mage. These are the ones that are they're gonna suck up all that value. Remember, these cards can only add enough value to the booster box to where that this set value goes to about 200 to 250. That means if these continue to be high, something has to give. And in my opinion, it's the Temporal Manipulations, it's the Crockuses, it's the Mana Vault. Mana Vault has reasonable amount of play. It's the Dark Depths, it's the Mikaeus the Unhollows, the Platinum Imperium. Well, Platinum sees a lot in Modern too, and it's already quite low. But it's a lot of these type of cards. The Gaddock Teegs. Oh, this card's already got crushed. The Through the Breach. These ones are pretty good as well. But yeah, they've just got to give. Something has to give. And these ones are just going to suck it up. Or it's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for cards like Tarmogoyf. And so, all right. I guess that's where it kind of leads me to. There's plenty of evidence. I challenge you to kind of go through a bunch of these lists. You can click on any of these and see across the board the vast majority of these type of cards has hit like a 60% or more decrease. So the Constant Craze Sphinx got up to $28. It's all the way down to 13, so that's over 50%. That's like a 60% decrease on the Consecrated Sphinx. We go over to let's go over to like something like Battle Bond, and see a bunch of these cards. Battle Bond is a little bit different. People could even disagree with me on Battle Bond because it's an in-stock high quantity set, and so of course there's a lot of value to get crushed. What's it sitting at? Let's go back over to Dawnglare to see. Let's go back. TCG Mid, Conspiracy. Battle Bond's still pretty decent. But you can see this was such a good box to open on October 20th. And yep, everyone's just going to start opening it. Open. And it's all the way down to $88.91, which is about to the point where it's unprofitable now for people to be cracking sets. You can start to see this with a lot of the in-standard sets when they had their booms. They're starting to get crushed as well. So yeah. Anyway, let's go back over what I was talking to with Battle Bond. If we come over here, you can see Doubling Season has had like a 50%. Land Tax, I believe that was another one that got absolutely crushed. So if we look at Land Tax, $17.40. This one even stayed at a Mythic, so it wasn't like it was adding that much stock to it. 4th edition got all the way up to $37.50 before it was absolutely crushed by the Battle Bond reprinting. And it doesn't look like this one's done either. If you follow this trajectory here, it looks like the land tax is probably going to settle down, I would say 13, 12. What's buy list at? $8. So even Card Kingdom doesn't give this a lot of faith, as they have it down for $8.75. And I'd be interested in seeing other buy lists. Usually that's a good way to kind of project it. Is a lot of times these like Card Kingdoms, they anchor on sales data. So if they're not moving this card, they have a low buy list spread. If they aren't removing this card, they have a higher buy list spread. And that's how it kind of works. So Battle Bond, a lot of these cards that had a lot of the good box value. Remember this set came out with $500 worth of cards in the set, and has had even cards like the Brightling that were initially bulk cards that shot up in value. Look at Brightling. Yikes. Brightling got crushed as well. But they didn't add to that initial, have just been completely crushed. Look at True Name Nemesis, one of my cards that I was investing in. I guess this is a good segue here for what I'm talking about. I think the singles market right now is uninvestable. That's why you haven't seen me do any of the Rogue roundup lately. Yes, I've been extremely busy, A, and B, the singles market has been insanely stagnant. If it hasn't been called standard, it has not been moving. And so Rogue Roundup, I try to do like one from each format, and right now I'm not even touching Commander, I'm not touching Modern, and I'm not touching Pauper at the moment. Yes, there have been, of course, some price spikes here and there, usually because a wacky wonky deck was played by either like MTG Rainbows or Seth, and then it does go up in value, or Learning Community College showcases a deck. Those, of course, will have their temporary spikes. But other than that, the market has been very, very, very quiet. And two reasons: standard is finally good for once, and B, there's nobody has any money to go around for the singles market when you can get the new shiny toy called Ultimate Masters. So that's what the single market has going against it. And there's just not a lot of investable targets at the moment, in my opinion. So anyway, you can go back over to, let's go back over to Masters 25. Where were we with Masters 25? I got so many tabs open here. And you can see a very similar thing happening to Masters 25. You can come over here. Jace is all the way down to, $90? We have it still holding the vast value, but you even see a card like Rashard and Port that has a lot of play in Eternal formats, and this card has got crushed too, all the way from the $117 mark, all the way down to $20. So when we come back over here, that back to basics, yeah, that does not even has it not been added into this? I don't know, maybe Seth's. Come on, Seth, where are you at? Oh, there's back to basics right there. $43.75. Ah, hell no. Ah, hell no. There is no way back to basics is able to hit this type of value. Alrighty, so I guess that's what we can do right now with the closing of the closing of this video. Not too much to talk about on today's Market Monday. I just wanted to have everyone realize exactly how the market works. There's a lot of hocus pocus going around there. There's a lot of just misinformation of exactly the way prices settle, the way supply and demand actually works in this day and age where demand is easily met with in-stock products. And in my opinion, with all those things going for, if Ultimate Masters was this really, really limited print run, I could see some of these cards possibly holding its value. I think we all remember the Tarmogoyf. When Tarmogoyf was actually reprinted in Modern Masters 1, it actually caused the price to go up, not down, because people opened. There was a huge frenzy of when it came out, and oh, look at this, Wizards is going to support reprinting cards. Okay, I might as well get my 4. And everyone had this huge buying spree of getting their play sets, and there was a brand new Modern format that no one had cards for. That is a very, very different environment that we are in right now, where the vast majority of enfranchised players that came through what I like to call from either Theros to Battle for Zendikar, or even Battle for Zendikar to Kaladesh, have been established and have been growing their collection. And there's just a lot of cards going around. There's a lot of There's as many people leaving the game right now as there is people joining the game, and for that reason, I think this is just going to be a set that is going to have a huge influx of cards into the secondary market, and the secondary market is not going to be able to gobble them up and handle them, and we're actually going to see a temporary crash in not only Ultimate Masters cards reprinted, but the entire singles market. So what that does is it's going to present a nice little opportunity for us in the early months of 2000 or the early months of 2019, maybe even the later 2018, where we're going to have some cards that I think are actually lower than what I would call their true value of where they're going to actually settle off when people actually do have money to start to spend back in the singles market. So again, pricing is kind of weird with like when everything's anchored towards like where vendors are pricing their cards. So what happens with TCG Player, like we said with the race at the bottom, is when cards aren't selling, it can cause a temporary crash in that card, even though it might be seeing a lot of. In fact, that's Spec 101. This is how I've been able to identify cards like this, where I knew this card has to go up from its low because it just sees so much play comparatively to where the price is at. So you can say, okay, this is just way lower. Of course, it just means that the format might be stagnant or people are investing it. But eventually, when the new players do get into it, this card is going to outstretch the other cards that are similarly rarities or similar printings or whatnot, just because of the demand of what that's going to produce of other people playing that deck. So I think that's what you should start looking for, is really good deals that are caused by this Ultimate Masters. Just me alone, where I've done like $20,000 in orders for Ultimate Masters. For me, that is a huge amount. I'm a small little vendor. It's the amount of people that are just so crazy about this Ultimate Masters, and there hasn't been a lot of pushback from distributors, just shows me that the supply is quite high and it is meeting demand, and Wizards Printed finally did gauge a good printing to demand. That's why they didn't have an allotment for stores, because they knew there was going to be plenty to go around. And with all that saying, all that money has to go somewhere, and if it's going into the pockets of Wizards of the Coast for their Ultimate Masters, it's not going into the secondary market, and that's going to cause a temporary price, at least not even maybe a temporary, but a permanent price decrease for that era, and then it's going to take a while for singles prices to then meet back up. So anyway, let's just look at Ultimate Masters. I'm going to give my final judgment on some of these cards, where they are at. Lid on the Veil, it's starting to see a decent amount of, or it has seen a decent amount of play. It's your staple of a staple in Modern. Is a very iconic card. $70. I think Liliana is the most likely card to stick. I think actually Karn Liberated and Liliana could be your two cards that remain above the $50 mark. Cavern of Souls is another one that I think will remain in that kind of list and has the best chance of sticking in here just because of how much of play. Temporal Manipulation, $20 card. 20, probably less. Tarmogoyf, I think it's going to be $30. Snapcaster Mage, $40, $45. Caracas, $15. Dark Depths, I see Dark Depths going all the way down to $10. Mana Vault, this one's tricky just because how much it sees play in Commander. This one could stick in the $20 range. I doubt it, though. I think that Mana Vault's one of those cards that's been creeping up and, has a lot of room to go down. Bitter Blossom can go back down to $20. Emrakul, Kozilek, and Ulamog, these ones are going to be temporarily crushed. You look at the Praetors from Iconic Masters as an example, but I think that long-term these will start to recover, and these will be good investments. These will be your typical ones that you want to invest into. However, let me give you a little bit of a disclaimer. I thought that this was going to happen with like Shieldred, and you can see it started to, but unfortunately, look at this dip here. So this is what Guilds of Ravnica. Remember how I said like out of sight, out of mind causes temporary price crashes just because no one is buying into that format? Look at the trajectory of Shieldred. Beautiful. So it flattened out at 10, went all the way up to 14, but then this happened. This right here happened, and it decreased it back down to 13. It tends to start going up. I think Kozilek, Ulamog, and Emrakul are going to follow this exact same trajectory. So they're going to get temporarily crushed, and then they're going to go back up. So there will be a lot of opportunity for those type of cards. Leovold, I think it's definitely going to get crushed halfway, 50% more. Mikaeus is going to be the big one. I remember Mikaeus. I remember this card saw very little play in its standard season, and it was basically bulk mythic, or pretty much close to a bulk. I remember this. and then it had this really, really slow growth. Now, Methinks never really hit the movers and shakers either. It was just one of these cards that's a penny a day type stuff, never really raised any eyebrows. I guess it went up here just because of the zombie. We're being reprinted Eldritch Moon, and is it a zombie tribal? No, it's not. I thought it gave him zombies. Oh well, it went up here with the resurgence of, or the reprinting of or returning to Innistrad block, and then went back up here again. This might actually have raised some alarms here with this one. But this card is your typical commander, slowly going up in price on this beautiful trajectory. These are the type of cards I love to invest in because they don't really raise any alarms where then people throw their inventory back on the market, and it causes these big shifts, these roller coasters is what I like to call them. Where was I at here? So Methinks, though, I really think it can go back down under 10. Platinum Imperium, same thing. Platinum Imperium, the good thing about Platinum Imperium is you got to definitely keep your eye on this card because any day now it could hit a tier 1 deck. It has the old switcheroo of a deck that runs red, where you can use Madcap Experiment and Platinum Imperium in your sideboard, and that's a very, very tough combo for many decks to actually deal with. That they don't. It's a good game 2. It's like if you win game 1, you can switcheroo on game 2, but if you lose game 1 and switcheroo on game 2, you probably have to go back to your original plan on game 3. It's kind of a weird one to be playing in Modern because it's something like it's something as simple as the Path to Exile can shut down the combo. Sigarda has a good time the thing is, like, we're done with Ravnica or Celestia, so I'm not sure Sigarda has a lot of being put in Celestia decks, like people building Trostani Commander decks. Trostani wasn't the greatest deck to build for Commander to begin with, the new one. So yeah, I don't know. Sigarda I think will get crushed. Baleful Dragon, Lord of Extinction, absolutely crushed. If we go over to Engineer Explosives, I actually think there's not enough. Usually it's a one of or two of in various decks. I don't think it's something going to hit that price tag. This is a Modern Masters 1, so that basically is a supply isn't great at all. So it had its original printing in what? It was the Sunburst, so that was what? Not Darksteel, Fifth Dawn. So Fifth Dawn and Modern Masters 1, very low supply. This is definitely your low supply and mid demand card. These tend to get really crushed at rare. Noble Hierarch, I think that $35 is probably, this is the one that might be able to sustain the most value just because it's one of the top, usually within the top 10, top 5 cards played in Modern. Ancient Tomb, this one could actually have the Tarmogoyf effect just because people then realize, oh wow, I never had an Ancient Tomb in my Commander deck. I should literally put an Ancient Tomb in every one of my Commander decks. There is zero reason not to have an Ancient Tomb in your Commander decks. And so it might have that Tarmogoyf effect that just introducing people to the card can cause the card actually to be more sought after. Celestial Colonnade, excuse me, I think that this is a card that's definitely, as a rare, is going to go way back down, at least under the $20 mark. Demonic Tutor, this is one that has a very, very high demand. Again, this one could be the one that has the greatest, but I think there's already Demonic Tutors that it is a new art, but they're already lower than this value. You can still find them from revised 4th edition, that type of stuff. Goro's Vengeance, Through the Rage, Gaddock Teague. These are the ones that I think have the most to lose. They are modern staples, but modern staples in usually non-tier decks, or it's just not that 4 of card that's going to be needed in multiple decks. So I think all of these being printed as rares, I mean, these are things that could have easily been printed as mythics. They decided to print them as rares. Yeah, they're going to get definitely hurt by the rarity more than anything. Life from the Loam. This one has the second best chance of holding its value under Noble Hierarch. I do like Life in the Loam sticking at least above the $15 mark, but I could definitely see it going lower. Urborg also has a good chance of sticking at a decent high price tag just because it's another card that goes in every Commander deck and eventually. But it just could... This is M15. It wasn't that long ago, and when it was printed in M15, it got crushed. Reanimate, crushed. Fulminator Mage, crushed. Maelstrom Pulse, crushed. Creeping Tar Pit, crushed. Raging Ravine, I don't know why isn't worth more than Creeping Tar Pit, because it actually sees more play, doesn't it? I can't remember. Tazagir, Lava Claw, String Wildwoods are already not relevant. They're already below that, $3 threshold where you shouldn't really care. They could even get hit more. Entomb should get crushed. Gamble should get crushed. Vexing Devil, temporarily. This one could stay around 7 just because it's a hot card right now. Squee, this is going to be a bulk rare, 50 cents to $1. Phyrexian Altar, very, very good commander card, but probably going to go down under 20. Wall of Reverence, I believe, will be under the $1 mark. Glenalandra under the $10 mark. Eldrazi Conscription, probably $3-4. Visions, $2-3. All is Dust. This one could probably has enough cavalry appeal to stick pretty well. Phyrexian Tower gets crushed. Ruined Halo gets crushed. Back to Basics already getting crushed, but definitely it's already lost 50% of its value. And Seismic Assault. Let's just go ahead and refresh this, see if it does anything. Refresh. Do I just hit it again? Will that refresh it? There we go. Doesn't look like anything's been updated here from this price list. We'll check in again later. I'll have the link in the description below for this particular spreadsheet. I'm sure Seth's going to continue to add to it. But it's again, you got to understand exactly how babies are made, and this is in the world of MG Finance. Everything has an anchor point. Everything has a direct reflection on not just supply and demand, but also on the price point that people get in on it. I'm sure there's a bunch of vendors that aren't even selling these to players that are just massively opening the boxes, and so this is also going to have a massive effect. Of course, if it has this sort of price tag, why the hell would you sell to anybody? It's a lot easier just to piece it out and make a better profit than selling at $265 a box when you can get a box topper and $400 in value. So I really think that we're going to get flooded on a level we haven't seen since like Modern Masters 2017. So it's going to be even different from this trickle down from Iconic Masters and Masters 25. All right, this has gone long enough. I've been rambling on the same topic over and over. I'll have a more in-depth what I just did with the Smasher Pass, I guess. Which one's going to lose most of its value? On my Rogue Market channel. We do need content for my Rogue Market. Haven't done anything for a couple weeks, and again, it's just because the market's been very stagnant, very slow, and not a lot to talk about outside of Standard. And that Standard's usually where I don't want to be a lot of times, especially now we've got kind of a not a solved, but a known meta where it's just bouncing back and forth between known decks, and that usually doesn't cause a lot of growth in the market or a lot of price spikes. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Comments, of course, are greatly encouraged. And in the comment section below, thanks for watching.